Kjære seer, velkommen til en ny video i serien Det Nye Norge. I dag er det lørdag den 9. desember. Og som du ser, så er jeg ikke hjemme med meg selv. Jeg er på seminar i dag, eller denne helgen, sammen med veldig mange fine folk som nå diskuterer Naturloven. Og det er et spennende tema, og som vi kommer til å stifte bekjentskap med i mange, mange år fremover, og som kommer til å øke på og akselerere, slik at alle som ser på nå kommer til å få et godt inntrykk av hva det er for noe, og hva det er for noe i forhold til den loven som blir anvendt i dag, som er sjøloven, som vi har pratet om så mange ganger. Og vi er da på en veldig fin plass, en bondegard faktisk, nede på Hadeland, på Roa, og det er Bråstadgard. Og for dere som ikke er kjent der, så vil jeg anbefale dere å ta et besøk på Bråstad og kjenne smaken av den gode maten og kjenne på den gode atmosfæren som VID Bråstad lager til oss alle. For at vi skal få en god forståelse av det temaet, Naturloven, eller som det på engelsk heter common law, så har jeg fått med meg en prominent gjest her i dag. Det er Dolores Cahill, som da er pensjonert professor, og som kan dette temaet framlengs og baklengs, og som er internasjonalt kjent for å promotere dette temaet. Så hjertelig velkommen, Dolores. Heartily welcome.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. I was trying to see if I understood Norwegian. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
First of all, this is your subjects and your topics. So I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell a little about yourself and why you're here and what you're doing.
So thank you. Yes, it's an honor to be here in Norway. My background is I was a professor for over 20 years, including in the School of Medicine in an Irish university. My qualifications are in biology and science, and my PhD is around immunology and cancer research. And then I went on and worked in Germany in the Max Planck Institute, and I co-developed high content protein arrays, and we developed and patented the use of those arrays to improve the accurate diagnosis, including in autoimmune disease and cancer. And also for 25 years or so, I've been involved in advising governments and the European Union in many areas of science and in innovation. And I was nominated by the Prime Minister of Ireland to be, as a voluntary role, on the Science Council of the Government of Ireland. So it was the Advisory Science Council. And then I also have been studying the law for many years, and my family were supporting a court case in Tipperary in the 70s and 80s, where a neighbour of ours, John Hanrahan, won the precedence case as a farmer against the pharmaceutical industry, Mark Sharp and Dome. And in that period, I learned very much how the legal system worked. And my family understood as well the law and the ancient tradition of law. So really, I've been interested in justice and law and natural law for all of my life, really. So when the 2020 came with COVID-19, I had been studying the United Nations Agenda 21, and that this would be and has been the 8th fraudulent and unlawful declaration of a pandemic. And I spoke out early in 2020, and also in law, if there is prevention and treatment, it is absolutely unlawful to lock down the world. And then in 2021, they chose as one of the technologies for the injections, the most deadly technology, which was mRNA, which was never approved in any clinical trials in 20 years, and was resulted in the deaths of either half of the animals in the studies or all of the animals. And in spring of 2020, I explained that to people and that there would be adverse events and deaths associated with the mRNA technology in the months and the years after people were injected. And sadly, that's what we see now. So that's what, and I have been traveling around the world explaining to people about the accountability of coroners and regulators and politicians and physicians acting as doctors of not giving prevention and treatment in law, because that's their obligation in law to first do no harm, and in medicine it's also do no harm and to use the precautionary principle in law. And that hasn't happened. There are many people who have adverse events or have lost loved ones, and then to stop this happening again is to spread the knowledge of the law and also the role of people in their nations to participate in jury services and on trial by jury. And we had an educational event here in Norway around a trial by jury for radiation and 5G. And in last weekend in Oxford, we had an educational trial by jury event around the restriction of people's travel through the United Nations Agenda 21 15-minute cities.
Thank you, Dolores. It is a music for my ears to hear all these statements, because you did make a very nice summary of all my videos that have now been produced during these 2 years. So I have not the same background as you, but I have on my platform, from my standpoint, just told the Norwegian people exactly what you now have been telling in English.
Well done, Jan.
Well done. Jeg så glad. Dette var fantastisk å høre, og jeg håper du forstod det Dolores sa. Hun bekreftet nøyaktig det som jeg har sagt nå på veldig mange videoer, og som har ført til faktisk at PST, altså det hemmelige politiet, eller hva man skal kalle det, har tatt mitt jaktvåpen og stemplet meg som en oppvigler og som en terrorist, mer og mindre. Så dette var...
We'll call it the T-word.
Det kvalitetsord, sier Dolores. Quality word. Men vi har nå hørt på foredrag av det, og vi har gått gjennom faktisk en simulering av en rettssak som da bygd på det som heter Naturloven, og det var en fantastisk opplevelse, og jeg fikk anledning til å være med i juryen, og fikk oppleve da en rettssak slik som jeg kommer til å oppleve det i fremtiden, når folkets bevissthet blir stor nok. Men Dolores, du sa her, når du sier at du er pensjonist, så det er nesten ikke til å tro. When you said you were a retired professor, retired is something I couldn't believe, because you also said, I feel like 18 and I am only starting. Yes. Tell us about that.
No. Yes, I did, because there are a lot of saboteurs that we meet, and a lot of people purporting to be freedom fighters, but really they are undercover agents, we'll say, or people that are trying to infiltrate the various organizations. So sometimes they come up to me and they say, oh, it must be terrible to have all these warrants and criminal challenges or accusations or whatever. And then I say to them, because if they were real freedom fighters, they'd be, interested in the reply. So I said, oh no, since I have been aware of what's been going on, and my family have been fighting this for many generations, that really it's an honor to be involved in this. So then I say to them, oh, I feel like I'm 18 years old and I'm only starting, and this is the beginning of the beginning. And then they look really depressed because they think after all they've done to all of us that they really want us to just be exhausted. But I'm such an honor to do it, and I feel this is the beginning of the beautiful new world that we're all working towards.
Dette var veldig hyggelig å høre, for jeg skal avsløre en liten ting. Jeg kjenner det nøyaktig på samme måten, og jeg er 81 år, som det kanskje noen av dere vet, og Og så det en ting til som Dolores sa, som viktig. Hun sa at vi må være med lenge. We have to be present for a long time because it's we who is going to do it.
Yes, exactly. I think, well, you know, many of the people that are maybe under 30, because the education system has been undermined, it might be difficult for them to understand what's going on, because people like us in our childhood, the world was actually a much better place, and men and women were accountable, and really the food was a lot healthier, the education system was much better, physicians really cared and healed people, and in general people maybe did not spend as much time looking at their phones. So I think for those of us who remember how beautiful life was, that really we have to keep as healthy as we can in order that we can be involved in creating the new world for 20, 30 years, and also the babies that are born in the years to come. We need to educate them and give them all the knowledge about food and how to grow their own food and how to heal themselves and how to look after each other. And we need to be more entrepreneurial as well. So I think it would be great if all of us could live for about another 40, 50 years. That's what I'm suggesting to people, to keep healthy.
Da må vi drikke veldig mye godt vann. Og da tenker jeg, vil du ha litt mer vann, Dolores?
Yes,
Dette
please.
her er Kangen-vann, og det kan jeg anbefale, for det er da et vann som er helt rent, og som beholder sine mineraler, og som da har fått en struktur og en frekvens som da er bra for helsa. Så jeg vil anbefale det, og det koster litt kroner, men helsa er verdt det. Ja. Dolores, what do you think about the legal system in the coming years? How do you see the development?
Now, that's a very good question. I suppose the first thing what we want to do is to restore the law, first of all, and then I think it's going to be actually interesting, because the men and women who are working in the legal system are working and speaking in the legalese is the language that they speak. And when they write to people using their names in all capital letters or using a title like Mr. or Miss, they are actually using a language that is not the lawful language. So, for example, in Éire or Ireland, the language of the law is Gaeilge, Irish, or English. And in Norway, it would be Norwegian. And each nation has a dictionary associated with the proper language. And it's actually a criminal offense in law to use the wrong language and write to people in relation to accusations of criminality. And anyone in the legal system is not using the lawful language. So how I was able to travel is just by asking the men dressed up as police whether they were trying to curtail our travel, or in the airports, what's your name? Because your first name, like Jan or Dolores, is the name in law. And what language are you speaking now? And then it is a criminal offence of malfeasance to dress up as a barrister or a solicitor and use a foreign language such as legalese. So I think what will happen is that those professions that are speaking in foreign languages in our nations, that people will not go to them anymore. And I also think that their qualification is for doing business on the sea. So really the area that barristers and solicitors that are registered on the British Accreditation Register, their absolute area of expertise is the equivalent of the cargo that travels on ships on the sea. And they have no qualification of dealing with living men and women in the native language like English or Irish or Norwegian, and men and women that are involved in trade or are harmed in the land of their native nation.
Dette her fint å høre fra en som så kunnskapsrik som Dolores, som har studert dette her I mange år. Og det bekrefter også det som jeg har sagt I mine videoer, at den loven vi har I Norge, og som da stortingsrepresentantene forvalter eller produserer, det sjøloven. Og hvis vi ser på Stortinget, altså på parlamentet I Oslo, så det orlogsflagget som veier på toppen av Stortinget, altså ikke det norske flagget. Og det betyr at det lovverket som vi har, det faktisk ulovlig. Det ikke I henhold til grunnloven, og hele den lovboken burde faktisk skrotas. Og slik som det ser ut nå, så det norske systemet, og sikkert det samme systemet over hele verden, så det ikke til beste for folket. Det passer ikke på sine innbyggere. Det til beste for noen andre som har en helt annen agenda. Dolores, there is many agendas out there in the world. Can you tell us a little bit about Agenda 2020, 21 and 2030 maybe, just for the public, so they can have some more word from you?
Yes, thank you very much for that. So the Agenda 21 is from the United Nations, so it's the United Nations Agenda 21, and it was published in Rio in Brazil in 1992, and it is the agenda for the 21st century, so it goes to the year 2100, and Agenda 21 in a way is almost like a book, and the chapters of the book would be ending in 2020 would be Agenda 2020, our ending in 2030 would be Agenda 2030, 2040. But really, when they're talking about Agenda 2030, they're saying it is the agenda from the year 2020 to 2030, but that is just a component part of Agenda 21. So Agenda 21 really is claiming to have good motives, but really the motives of Agenda 21 are to undermine the health and the happiness and to try and facilitate the theft or stealing of property. And they do that using their infiltration of the sovereignty of our nations in a deceptive and unlawful way. And they have infiltrated the local council structures so that in their system, the head of the local council in the Agenda 21, in all systems in the world, the local council head in their world has more authority through the United Nations Agenda 21 system than the members of parliament or the prime minister. So it's quite a deceptive and insidious process, and they're trying to take control over planning and housing and how the roads are structured, and to fine people everywhere for traveling within your local region, your local county, your local region. And that is, the reason for that is they want to, in the longer term, restrict people's movement or freedom of travel, or to exploit them by taking huge amounts of money if they use cars or whatever. So they have many tools, but one is the false claim that carbon dioxide contributes to heating up of the atmosphere in the world, when it's actually, as in everything they do, it's the opposite. Carbon dioxide does not contribute to this global warming, and increasing in carbon dioxide is the best way to grow more plants in the world, and that will provide more food for people. So I would say United Nations Agenda 21 will be proven to be the most deceptive and undermining policy. And what we're doing in Oxford was to challenge some of the key components, including they are saying that English men and English women will have to pay in order to go from one side of the city of Oxford to another, and they are restricting people's movements. So I saw a meme actually, just to finish off. It said they called them 15-minute cities because concentration camps doesn't have the same appeal.
Dette nå får du høre det fra en som har tyngde og pondus. Og jeg minner om at jeg har vært inne på det samme tankene i andre videoer til dere. Nå er det slik at nå har vi vært samlet her på Bråstad i 2 dager, vi skal være her i morgen også. Og temaet er da den naturloven. Og vi har fått fantastisk mye lærdom, og vi er faktisk 80 mennesker samlet her. Og det er en flokk som er helt unik. Og det er folk som er vakne, som er uvaksinerte, som er spirituelle, og som vet hvordan verden er skruet sammen. Slik at da er det ikke bare et fåtall. Det er ganske mange, og da kommer vi fra nørst i Norge og til syns i Norge over hele landet. Og det er dyktige folk med alle typer profesjoner, og med høyt utdannede folk, og folk fra helt alminnelige grasrotbevegelser. Så dette er en opplevelse, og det er første gang i Norge at vi lager en slik rettssak. Så det var litt historisk, det vi gjorde i dag. Og jeg håper at vi kommer til å ha mange slike hendelser i tiden som kommer, og at det blir lagt merke til på en slik måte at det får makt og kraft. Til slutt nå så vil jeg spørre Dolores om hun tror at det norske samfunnet kommer til å bestå, og at vi klarer denne jobben. Fordi slik som det ser ut nå, så har myndighetene faktisk solgt ut landet vårt. De har stjålet ressursene, og de etterlatt oss med smuler og småtteri. Og vi får ikke tilgang på det som er arvesølvet vårt, den elektriske kraften. Vi får ikke styre oljevirksomheten vår, vi får ikke styre fiskeripolitikken vår, vi får ikke styre noe som helst, fordi at det er andre krefter utenfor landet som styrer det. So now I just ask you, just as a last statement, Dolores, do you think there is a hope for the Norwegian society?
Of course. It's lovely to be here in Norway, and there was an amazing bunch of people. So yes, I have great hope, and actually what I've noticed is that you have retained as well your fabric of community and family as well, which is wonderful to see, and also your many traditions, including what we've seen in this wonderful farm venue around Christmas and around healthy food, and it's amazing to be here. So yes, I do think there's hope, and in a way I think as well, really, even though COVID-19 has been very sad for particularly the deaths in the care homes and the deaths of unborn babies following the injections of the mothers, and the adverse events of people who have been injected. But on another level, someone like me, I hardly had met anyone who knew about the real detail, as Rosa Corey says, behind the green mask, behind this United Nations fakery and mockery and lies and deception. There was hardly anyone that I'd met within my decades of studying it. But what we've done in Custodian and Custodian Institute and in the World Freedom Alliance and in people in Stand in the Parks around the world and Guardians 300 and World Doctors Alliance that I've been involved, and we have over 100,000 people in Freedom Travel Alliance, and we're now working with the cooperative movement and with cooperative movements around the world. There are literally thousands and millions of us that had expertise in the lies and deception and fraud that was going on for all of our lives. And really, because of COVID-19, many people lost their jobs because they would not do unlawful things and they would not harm people. And many of us are also very entrepreneurial, and many have invented ways to heal people or ways to teach people how to grow food, or been collecting heritage seeds. and also dedicated themselves really the past years and the future decades to having alternatives to the system that we have of health or education, or the lack of justice, or the fraud within the banking system as it's operating now. So I have amazing hope, and I think it may take us 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or a generation. But in 10 years or in a generation, our whole system in Norway and in Ireland and all around the world, that people will not be censored. They will have access to information. The water will have less toxins. The food will be better. And the system that we have of healing people and justice and accountability will be much better. And I think we spoke a little bit about it. I think a major underpinning factor will be the fight back to censorship that's delivered when people use the original blockchain, because we can upload information and data on the original blockchain, including the original Bitcoin that's now BSV. And there is a court case coming up on the 15th of January 2024, and that will adjudicate whether the inventor of Bitcoin is acknowledged. And I think that will have a major impact, whatever happens in that case. But that I am building a network and I'm in touch with many people who are using the blockchain. And that will allow people to store their data and to communicate with each other without the censorship of life-saving information that we've seen on the so-called free platforms. So I think the combination of the overcoming of censorship using the blockchain and allowing people to give health information and information about food, and for people to store vital information and also their lawful documents, will actually empower people to claim ownership and not really to do what they're claiming is to own nothing and to be happy. So I have great hope for the future. And thank you very much, Jon, for interviewing me. And it's been a pleasure to spend the last few days in Norway, Sweden and Denmark. And I'd like to wish all the people of Scandinavia, including Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Greenland, and also to the Sami people who are hosting us today, and the Inuit people that have come to the various talks that I've had in Scandinavia. And a Merry Christmas to everyone listening all around the world, but particularly in Scandinavia and also in Ireland and Britain. So thank you very much. Lovely to be interviewed by you.
Mange takk, Dolores. Thank you very much. This was really something for us all.
Lovely.
And I hope you understand. And you brought in the last minutes some new topics like blokkjede og krypto. Og det et tema som vi skal ta opp i en ny video. De skal belyse dette ganske mye dypere enn akkurat dette. Men vær oppmerksom på at både krypto og blokkjede det kommer til å bli en del av vår hverdag. Men når det sagt, så sier jeg til dere alle sammen god jul. Og takk for alt som har skjedd i det gamle året, for nå ebber det ut. Og vi kommer til å oppleve fantastiske nye endringer på nyåret, kanskje til og med på slutten av dette året. Så takk for at du har sett på videoene mine, og jeg håper du vil være med fortsatt. Og da sier vi takk for i kveld ifra Bråstad gård.